Hey there, Queen. So let's talk about direction and how when you know the direction that you want to lead the conversation, it changes and transforms your communication. So, as you know, we have been in our series dedicated to being a better communicator. And previously in the last session, we talked about responsibility and accountability and ensuring that you lead conversations well with and through your communication. So, today, as I said, we're going to be focused on the direction of the conversation and bringing all five sessions together: communication, boundaries, leadership, and emotional steadiness, along with today's conversation on the direction of your conversation. Because when you're clear on the direction of the conversation, it shifts and elevates your communication from reactive to intentional. So when you think about direction as it relates to having clear direction in your conversations, it's just that it isn't about you trying to control or dictate what will or won't happen in the conversation. It simply means that you are clear about what it is you want to share and the way that you want to share it before you ever even speak. And oftentimes we don't recognize it, but many conflicts arise because people were not clear before they went to have a conversation. Other people are left guessing in the conversation, and the conversation can drift and shift from here, there, and everywhere. And it can lead to the other party or even both people becoming defensive. And that's why it is important to be clear, to set a direction for the conversation before you speak. That way you minimize these types of challenges coming up and causing unnecessary conflict in your conversations with your communication. When you're clear on the direction that you want the conversation to go in, you're clear on the tone you need to carry into that conversation and the boundaries that you may be challenged to keep and maintain within that conversation before you ever go to have it. So let's say you want to have a conversation with someone and you know that conversation is going to be intense. You know it's going to be heated because this person is likely going to disagree with something or maybe everything that you want to share with them. When you're clear on the direction that you want the conversation to go in, you're clear on the tone that you need to set as you go to have this conversation with this person. And that way your communication is anchored and it is centered on what you intend the outcome to be. And within that conversation, as challenges or disagreements may arise, you are able to lead that conversation from a place of calm and confidence instead of getting pulled into their chaos or their dysfunction because of how they may emotionally respond due to what they are feeling within themselves. It gives you purpose and it gives you the ability to know when or if the conversation needs to be tabled, redirected, or simply brought to an end. Because when you're clear on the direction, it is easier to know and recognize when the conversation is not headed in the direction that you intended. And so that makes it easier for you to make adjustments in real time to get the conversation back on track, or like I said, redirect it or simply end it, because you can see no matter what, it's not going to be productive and fruitful. And that begins before you even start the conversation. You set that direction internally so that you're anchored in it externally when you go to have it. So I'm going to share with you now how direction works with the other four elements that we have covered in the other parts of this communication series so that we can be equipped to be better communicators through our conversations using our words. And that first element is communication. Your communication is the way in which your direction gives clarity to your message, the thing that it is that you want to share. Then there are your boundaries. Your boundaries are the way in which you directly and indirectly say and show what you will and what you won't engage in. And then the third aspect is responsibility. And responsibility is the way in which you direct yourself and show up for yourself in such a way it's clear to the person or to the people how you have decided to stay in control of your emotions and not let your emotions cause you to have an emotional reaction. And the fourth element is leadership. So as it relates to leadership, leadership is the way in which you direct yourself to show up in such a way that you are taking initiative instead of taking a step back or a seat back and letting someone else run the show. In other words, you take the lead. You lead leadership. And then the last element, emotional steadiness. This is where you make a decision to stay grounded, to stay rooted, to stay anchored in calmness versus responding or reacting to somebody else's chaos and getting pulled and dragged into their negative emotions, especially in such a way that the conversation just goes off the rails. So all of those elements work together. They are not isolated. You need them all, especially if you want and desire to communicate and have conversations that lead to outcomes and not just people talking for the sake of talking or ending up frustrated, stressed, and not getting anything resolved. And that's regardless of whether you're talking to a spouse, a coworker, or even family. So with the spouse, you may say, I want us to be able to understand each other, not argue about who's right. With a coworker, you may say or share, I want us to clearly understand each other's expectations, not communicate from a place of tension. And with the family member, you may say, I want us to have a relationship where we can build and grow, not repeat and get caught up in old patterns that don't serve us well. But when you're clear on that outcome, and those were example outcomes, but when you are clear on whatever your outcome is, you bring that energy with you into the conversation. And I know you have probably heard it said that energy is not created or destroyed. It is transferred between one party to the next. And that is true. People feel your energy when you come into their presence. Even though they may not say it and they may not consciously recognize it, subconsciously, whatever energy we carry, we bring that energy with us when we show up into the room. So the question is, what type of energy do you want to bring into the room? And what type of energy is required for you to bring in the room, especially for you to achieve your outcome and do so with clarity, confidence, and calmness. Because the direction that you desire to take the conversation in requires you to stand firm in your boundaries and know who you are. It requires you to be able to control and command your emotions so that your emotions don't take you away. And it requires you to use your words, use your communication as a tool to equip others to understand what you need, what you want, what you expect, and what you value. So when you walk into a room, you bring that sense of clarity about your direction and about your intention for the direction of the conversation. And you do so in such a way that your energy doesn't shift depending on what's happening with or within the other person or other people. You instead set the direction and you set the tone for the environment and for the conversation. And that keeps you anchored, it keeps you steady, and it keeps you focused on what you said the direction of the conversation was supposed to be. Because you don't react to the energy that's in the room. You set the energy that shows up in the room. And that starts with you, and that starts with how you anchor yourself from within by knowing and being clear on the direction that you intend for the conversation to go. And notice I said intend, because you can intend one thing, but depending on a number of various factors that happens with that other person, what you intend may not come to pass. But it doesn't mean that you didn't lead the conversation or that you didn't have a clear sense of direction. It simply means that that person at that time, for that situation, in that conversation, you couldn't get to a place with them where there was a meeting of the mind. But again, when you have a clear direction for the conversation, you are prepared to handle that if that should become the case, and do so owning your power and owning your voice, and still showing up confident and making an exit if there should need to be an exit from that conversation. Now, if this series has been speaking to you as it relates to communication, boundaries, leadership, emotional steadiness, and now direction, then I invite you into your next best step, because that means you are ready for my webinar, From Conflict to Confident. And in this webinar, I'll be equipping you with the foundation that you need to ensure you can navigate any conflict without losing your voice. And you do so with clarity. You'll walk away clear on what conflict truly is and why it keeps showing up the same way. You'll understand the real cost of unresolved conflict and the impact that it has on your relationship. And you'll walk away knowing the four must know conversations that can transform the outcomes of your conversations through your communication, especially when you have them and have them the right way. And for those who are ready to go even deeper beyond the webinar, I'll have an exclusive invite just for you. And that will be an experience that equips you to communicate with clarity and confidence. Stand firm on your boundaries and lead your relationships with confidence. So if you know you're ready to take your next best step, go ahead and make your way to www.cesamempowers.com/confident and reserve your seat for my From Conflict to Confident webinar. And also, let me know, what was your biggest takeaway, your biggest aha, the one thing that really shifted your perspective the most throughout this series? Drop it in the comment section below. I'm interested to know. And lastly, I want to leave you with this final thought. Your voice is powerful, your presence is commanding, and this is the year to communicate like the woman you were always meant to be. Because direction isn't about force, it's about leadership. And when a woman knows where she's going, her conversations through her communication reflects it. As always, I'm Coach Sam, telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours, you can change your life. So go ahead and do something life changing now.